The ancient drums of Ile-Oluwa village had fallen silent on the night Adunni's child was born. As thunder rolled across the thatched roofs and palm fronds whispered urgent warnings in the wind, Adunni lay writhing on her birthing mat, sweat beading on her dark skin like morning dew. The flickering flame of the palm oil lamp cast dancing shadows on the mud walls, and in those shadows, something evil stirred. As her newborn son emerged into the world, Adunni's eyes widened in terror. For in that sacred moment between life and death, she witnessed something that would haunt her forever. A brilliant, otherworldly light emanating from Babatunde's eyes, like twin flames from the depths of hell. The respected healer's face contorted into something monstrous, his gentle features twisting into a mask of ancient malevolence. In that horrifying instant, Adunni understood with crystal clarity why her beloved mother had visited her dreams with such desperate warnings. Long before that cursed night, Babatunde had been the most celebrated figure in all of Ile-Oluwa. His compound, built near the sacred iroko tree at the village center, was always bustling with expectant mothers and worried families. The man's reputation stretched beyond the village borders like ripples in a pond, reaching distant communities across the vast Yoruba lands. Babatunde's hands were said to hold the very essence of Ifa wisdom, the power to coax life from the jaws of death itself. His knowledge of herbs, roots, and birthing rituals was unmatched, passed down, he claimed, through generations of his ancestors who had served as healers to great Yoruba kings. Women would travel for days through thick forests and across rushing streams, their swollen bellies heavy with hope, seeking the miracle of his touch. The legend of Babatunde's power had been born 3 harvests ago, during the season when the harmattan winds brought dust and desperation to the land. Folklore, a young trader's wife, had labored for 2 agonizing days before finally delivering her child, a baby boy who emerged still and lifeless, his tiny lips blue as the indigo cloth in the market stalls. The entire birthing hut had fallen into mourning. Women wailed the ancient songs of loss, while Folklore's heart shattered like a gourd dropped on stone. But Babatunde, calm as the great river during dry season, had taken the silent infant in his weathered hands. He lifted the child toward the smoke hole in the roof, his lips moving in what appeared to be fervent prayer, his eyes closed in deep concentration. For several breathless moments, nothing happened. Then, like thunder breaking the silence of a clear sky, the baby's cry pierced the air, strong, healthy, and magnificently alive. Folklore's tears of grief transformed into tears of joy so profound that she could barely speak. She proclaimed to everyone within hearing that Babatunde had wrestled her son back from the very arms of death. Word spread like wildfire during harmattan season. From compound to compound, market to market, the story grew and transformed. Babatunde wasn't just a healer, he was a miracle worker, blessed by the Orishas themselves. Every woman in Ile-Oluwa and beyond dreamed of having a Babatunde child, for these children grew with an otherworldly intelligence and strength that set them apart from their peers. As the seasons turned and the years flowed like the great Ogun River, something remarkable yet unsettling began to manifest in Ile-Oluwa. The children delivered by Babatunde's hands were indeed extraordinary, but their gifts came with shadows that the villagers chose to ignore. These children, now numbering in the dozens, displayed an uncanny wisdom that made adults uncomfortable. They spoke in proverbs beyond their years, understood complex matters of trade and farming before they could properly walk, and showed a mysterious knowledge of herbs and healing that they had never been taught. The villagers called them Omo Babatunde, Babatunde's children, and wore this designation with pride, even as unease gnawed at their hearts like termites in dry wood. Young Kahinde, delivered by Babatunde's hands 4 seasons ago, could predict when the rains would come with accuracy that shamed the village's traditional weather readers. Little Taiwo, barely 3 years old, had been seen talking to the spirits that dwelled in the ancient baobab tree, carrying on conversations that left observers speechless with wonder and fear. The children gravitated toward Babatunde's compound with an intensity that troubled their parents. They would disappear for hours, returning home with eyes that held secrets too heavy for their young souls. When questioned, they would simply smile with a knowing that belonged to the aged, not the innocent. But the villagers' desire for these special children blinded them to the growing darkness. They ignored the whispered concerns of a few observant elders, dismissed the strange dreams that began plaguing mothers throughout the community, and turned deaf ears to the increasingly urgent warnings from the ancestral spirits. Adunni had been blessed with marriage to Akande, a skilled palm wine tapper, whose laughter could fill their modest compound with joy. For 6 long years, they had waited for the blessing of children, offering countless sacrifices to the fertility Orisha and seeking the counsel of various healers. Their love remained strong, but the empty spaces in their home echoed with unspoken longing. When Adunni finally conceived, the entire village celebrated. Here was another chance for a Babatunde miracle, another child to add to the legendary healer's growing legacy. Adunni herself was overjoyed, spending her pregnancy weaving tiny mats and carving small wooden toys, dreaming of the extraordinary child she would soon hold. But on a night when the moon hung like a curved blade in the star-studded sky, Adunni's dreams turned dark and prophetic. Her mother, Iyabo, who had crossed to the ancestors' realm 2 rainy seasons prior, appeared to her daughter with an urgency that made the dream world tremble. Iyabo's spiritual form radiated fear and desperate love as she grasped her daughter's hands. "My precious Adunni," she said, her voice carrying the weight of ancestral knowledge. "You must not let Babatunde near your child. His hands carry curses disguised as blessings. He binds the children he touches to his dark will, stealing their souls for powers that should never belong to mortals." The dream was so vivid that Adunni could smell her mother's favorite palm kernel oil and feel the familiar roughness of hands that had loved and cared for her since birth. But when she awakened, confusion flooded her heart like muddy water after heavy rains. How could she doubt Babatunde, the man who had brought so much joy to so many families? The weeks that followed were filled with internal torment. Adunni found herself torn between her mother's spiritual warning and the overwhelming social pressure to use Babatunde's services. Every woman she encountered spoke of their hopes for her Babatunde child, and the healer himself visited their compound several times, his presence both comforting and mysteriously unsettling. When Adunni's labor pains began with the intensity of a thunderstorm, Akande immediately sent for Babatunde. Despite her mother's warnings echoing in her mind, Adunni felt she had no choice. The entire community expected her to use the village's most celebrated healer. Babatunde arrived as the sun began its descent toward the western horizon, carrying his familiar leather bag filled with herbs and mysterious instruments. His presence filled the birthing hut with an energy that made the palm oil lamps flicker nervously and caused the chickens in the nearby coop to fall strangely silent. As Adunni's labor intensified, she noticed something that chilled her to the bone. Babatunde was chanting under his breath, not the traditional birthing song she expected, but something else entirely. The words were in a language she didn't recognize, ancient and guttural, carrying undertones that made her skin crawl like insects walking across her flesh. With each chant, Adunni felt her strength ebbing away, as if invisible hands were drawing her life force from her body. The very air in the hut seemed to thicken with malevolent energy, and she began to understand with growing terror that her mother's warning had been more literal than she could have imagined. When her son finally emerged into the world, the moment of his birth coincided with the most horrifying revelation of Adunni's life. As Babatunde lifted the crying infant, his eyes blazed with an unnatural light that seemed to come from the depths of his soul. His familiar weathered face underwent a transformation so complete and terrifying that Adunni's scream caught in her throat. The man she had trusted revealed his true nature. Features twisted with malice, eyes burning with otherworldly fire, and an expression of satisfaction so evil it seemed to corrupt the very air around him. In that moment of truth, Adunni saw not a healer, but a creature of darkness wearing human skin. "No!" she managed to cry out with the last of her strength. "Do not touch my child with your cursed hands." Stay tuned for the part 2 of the video, which is coming out of Wednesday. Don't forget to like this video, share it with someone, drop your comment of what you think of Babatunde's secret behind his powers, subscribe and turn on the notification bell so that you will not miss out on the part 2.